Welcome to the Aaron L Show. We're gonna do a show about Lil Durk. Lil Durk is on his way to trial for murder for hire. He actually didn't shoot the person that died, but it's a murder for hire. They got the guys who did do the shooting is linked to Lil Durk. So what they're basically doing is they're saying that Lil Durk financially gave these guys access to commit the murder. You know, the cars, the plane tickets to get to the area that they were in. You know, it really stemmed back from last year when a few guys that was associated with Lil Durk caught a plane from the to the San Diego area and rented some rental cars to drive to the LA area to try to track down rapper Quando Rondo. Now all this stems from Quando Rondo shooting King Von, which is a friend of Lil Durk's, and killing King Von. And Lil Durk putting money, a bounty out on Quando Rondo because he wanted, revenge for his friend's shooting. So I watched the news when Quando Rondo was almost killed, but his cousin was killed during the shooting. And I didn't think nothing of it. A lot of bloggers jumped on and were just talking about how, when you go to LA, you need to check in. That's when I made a video about checking in and stuff like that. But we didn't really know that Lil Durk them had kind of like some kind of ties to it. We ain't gonna say Lil Durk, allegedly paid somebody to go do that. But at that time, we just thought that this was something random that happened in LA. Fast forward to now we have Lil Durk being arrested because a lot of the guys that they figured out was involved in this shooting is tied to his OTF record label. So now we fast forward to Lil Durk being indicted. He's being arrested. They said he was trying to flee. He scheduled a bunch of plane rides out of the country. He never showed up to any of the airports to take the plane rides, but I guess he was trying to make some type of diversion to get out of there because he realized he had a warrant or something for his arrest. So they captured Lil Durk in October of last year, 2024. His case was going to go to trial in January. It got pushed back. So now here we are in October. The case was scheduled to go to trial October 14th. So here we are now. Now Lil Durk has other indictments that are coming in that's basically stating that he has other murder for hire plots. Now, I really don't know. Lil Durk got himself tied into a whole bunch of stuff. I'm pretty sure they got wiretaps. I'm pretty sure they have text messages because a lot of these young guys, they don't really realize, these Apple phones and these phones that has all this technology, it tracks you. They're able to track the text messages. They able to figure out where you're at. Your phone is pinging off of cell phone towers and all type of stuff. So, the FBI, they definitely gonna do their homework and they definitely gonna tie Lil Durk into something because what they do is they don't have to have enough evidence to convict you and just all out have you red-handed, but they can get enough evidence to upon a reasonable doubt. That's where they're going to get you at on that reasonable doubt. And then they have 3 or 4 guys on the case with Lil Durk. Ain't no telling which one of those guys are going to crack, and say, hey, look, I'm facing 25 to life, and, they willing to negotiate a deal or, hey, look, I'll tell you what really happened, for lesser sentences. You really don't know if Lil Durk crew going to stand rock solid because a lot of the times they not really going to tie you into a situation if they don't have enough evidence to do so. Now, Lil Durk, his situation is he has a bunch of money. So I believe Lil Durk is going to be able to get a bunch of powerhouse lawyers and get up in there and probably wiggle his way out of this. Now, they said they're not going for the death penalty. That's a good thing in Lil Durk's situation, even though he does have other charges that's starting to pop up on him with another murder for hire plot besides the Quando Rondo shooting. He has another associate that was associated to him that was murdered and shot. And they said that he did a murder for hire on the guy who did that, and that guy ended up dying himself. So Lil Durk basically, but see, the one thing that I'm noticing about this case is you can't really put Lil Durk at the scene of the crime. You're basically just saying he has something to do with it. So he has a lawyer that could probably like finesse the situation, kind of wiggle his way out of that. You really don't know. I'm going to go into detail so I can know who his lawyer is. who is the person that he's supposed to be murder for hire and plot. This is just an update so that I can get the ball rolling on keeping track of Lil Durk's trial and how everything is moving forward. But I mean, my opinion of it is like I said, they don't have Lil Durk red-handedly doing anything. Everything is like a conspiracy, almost like, hey, look, these guys that you are associated with did it. We have a little bit of evidence of you guys talking about a situation, almost, to where Lil Durk said, hey, don't book nothing that's linking back to me, no plane tickets, no rental cars or nothing like that. But those guys went on and did it anyway, using one of the company credit cards to buy the plane tickets so that they can get to San Diego. They rented the rental cars, if I'm not mistaken, with the company credit card. So that's what they kind of trying to link Lil Durk with it, trying to say he has something to do with it. His friends could basically, they could just say, hey, Lil Durk didn't have nothing to do with this. We went out there to revenge King Von's death on our own, and Lil Durk didn't have nothing to do with this. And Lil Durk could probably walk on those charges. But when you talk about the second murder for hire plot, we don't really know what they got tying Lil Durk into that. I believe it's still just the text messages, people that they feel done it is associated with Lil Durk. So Lil Durk, he has to, man, like I said, these guys, they rap about a whole bunch of stuff. We hear them talk about the shootings. We hear them talk about stuff in their raps, whether it's facts or it's just, them on their songs capping, because that's kind of what the music industry is trending towards, drill music. That's what they call it. It's drill music. They rap about killing, shooting, money, lifestyle, and stuff like that. So it's like they taking a lot of these artists, and they listening to what they saying, and then they're saying, what, this is real facts of the stuff you're doing. Now, an artist, once he get in a situation like that, he's going to sit back and say, hey, look, man, this is all for entertainment purposes only. This isn't facts. This isn't stuff that I actually done. What I do is I kind of like manipulate the situation with my music, and I make it seem like it's facts. And I kind of paint this image of myself because this is what sells. But they not trying to hear all that, because what they doing is they hearing what you're talking about in your music, and then they turning around and seeing that you're tied, where your name keep coming up. It ain't even that you tied into it, because they don't really got no solid evidence on Durk. That your name is just coming up. People that you associated with is committing crimes, and we believe you the one funding all this. You know what I mean? That's what they basically trying to tie Lil Durk into. But at the moment that, they grabbed Lil Durk, I believe he was trying to turn a new leaf. If you see how Lil Durk was moving and how Lil Durk was talking, but it could be just a situation to where he done committed so much dirt that he's starting to realize, like, man, eventually if I keep moving like this, they going to tie something to me and I'm going to be facing some jail time. So let me go on and back on up. But before Durk could back on up, it's too late. They done already grabbed you. You know what I mean? They grabbed your partners. You know what I'm saying? And they got y'all all linked, trying to say, hey, look, this the crime now is committed. We believe they committed this crime because, this, that, and the third. And Lil Durk, we got some text messages where y'all not really saying y'all committed the murder, but y'all kind of like talking in an area that makes us believe that y'all got something to do with this. Lil Durk got 3 or 4 friends they got tied to this. They used the OTF credit cards to move around how they was moving when it come to the plane tickets, the rental cars, and stuff like that. So, Lil Durk, they got a long trial coming up. We gonna definitely keep the updates coming. Me personally, I think this could be a situation like Young Thug. It looks real bad in the beginning, but after all the evidence come out and everything starts to play out, it's gonna be hard to convict Lil Durk with the amount of money he has if you don't have him red-handedly on something. You don't, unless like they said a while ago, that maybe one of the cats that he had in his camp, the dude that had just came home, I'm gonna have to get his name again, but the guy that just came home, Lil Durk, put some money in his pocket, made sure he asked him where to stay, got him a car, this, that, and the third, looked out for his partner because he was fresh out. But they saying that dude still had ties to the police, or he came home and got caught up on something, and then they had this dude wearing a wire, and while he was wearing that wire, they trying to say quiet is kept. I'm not for sure if it's just allegations, allegedly, but they trying to say that this dude was wearing a wire, and he got Lil Durk on wiretap stating something that had to do with the crime. Now, I'm not really for sure because all the evidence haven't came out. You know, that can get dismissed in court, you know, whether Lil Durk said it or not, or whatever they might have on Lil Durk. You know, you got some top-notch lawyers. They know how to get stuff dismissed throughout, even though it's facts and it's evidence. It got to stand in court first before it can be presented as evidence, and a judge can actually take something and throw it out because the way you obtained the evidence. See, a lot of people got to realize, you know, a lot of these cases, they look real bad when you first look at it from the, you know, the grand scheme of things. When you look at the paperwork and you just stare at it from the beginning, you like, okay, Lil Durk cooked. But once you get to flipping them pages and start to realize how they obtained the evidence, you know, okay, you got somebody telling on Durk, but that's not a creditable witness. You know, these is a lot of things that you have to look at when you start talking about trial, because you can't just present anything as evidence. You know what I mean? And you got to prove upon a reasonable doubt. And they haven't caught Lil Durk with a murder weapon. They haven't caught Lil Durk at the scene. He wasn't nowhere near the situation when it happened. All you're trying to do is tie him in because it's his associates that committed the crime. And then you have a few text messages that's verifying Lil Durk knew that they was moving around or doing something, because they saying, okay, your friends flew from Chicago to San Diego using a credit card that was tied back to your company. In San Diego, they rented a rental car using credit cards that was tied back to your company to get to LA. You flew from Miami to LA so that you can orchestrate it from a distance. You wasn't on a plane ride with them from Chicago to San Diego, but you flew from Miami to Los Angeles. So what they're going to do is try to say, okay, well, what business did you have going to LA at the same time they did when they committed this shooting? Because they're going to say, hey, the reason why you were in LA is because you were trying to orchestrate this shooting, or you wanted to see the aftermath after it was done. Whatever the situation is. So Lil Durk is going to try to figure out, you know, what was you doing in LA? Do you have any paperwork showing that you had something booked, that you had a show, that you had a reason to be out there? Because it's crazy how somebody you know that's tied to your camp flew from Chicago to San Diego and then drove to LA. You flew from Miami to LA and y'all didn't link up. Y'all didn't meet up. Y'all didn't go out to eat. Y'all didn't go nowhere. They came here, did a shooting. You came here for absolutely no reason. And then at the same time, after the shooting, y'all all hightailed it up out of LA going in different directions. And then before we know it, when it started to come down, where the heat started coming down on everybody, you decided to take a plane ticket and try to fly up out the country, but you never flew up out the country. You was trying to just throw a diversion so you can get up out of here another way. So they're going to try to paint that narrative. You know what I mean? But like I said, Lil Durk got some great lawyers. They're going to be on top of all of it. They're going to already know what direction the district attorney is going to be trying to go in. Basically, the federal government, they fighting the feds on this one. They not trying to convict Durk on a death penalty charge, but at the same time, they're trying to tie him into this murder for hire plot, which probably carries a life sentence. And then they have another murder for hire plot that just came up where an associate of his was killed. And the person who did the killing, they're stating that he put a bounty out on that guy, a murder for hire plot that got that guy killed who killed his associate. So now Lil Durk is facing 2 murder for hire plots. It's a lot of twisting and turning that's going on in this case. I really don't know what direction it's going to go in. But like I said, Lil Durk has some powerhouse lawyers. They're definitely going to get a lot of this stuff throughout because it's hearsay. You don't have Lil Durk at the scene of none of these crimes. He's not in possession of none of the murder weapons. He do know some guys that y'all trying to say committed the crime, but you can't put Lil Durk there. If you don't have no text messages that's basically showing Lil Durk admitted he knew it happened, or he told the guy, hey, look, I'm gonna get this bread for you, man. I appreciate you taking care of that for me. If you don't have Lil Durk tied into anything like that, I really don't see where you got a rock solid case. Y'all all are just gonna go in there and battle in front of a jury and try to make your side make sense. And it's going to be who's the best at manipulating the situation, because the district attorney know they don't have a rock solid case like that. You got evidence, but you don't got a rock solid case that just, you don't got the smoking gun in Durk's hand. You know, and Durk lawyers know that. You know, y'all don't got the smoking gun in his hand. Durk didn't commit this murder, and then y'all caught him 4 blocks away trying to high speed, and y'all had him in the area. Durk was nowhere around when this stuff was committed. So basically, you're going to try to take some hearsay evidence and convict Durk on a murder charge. And I don't see it happening. I see it getting broke down to a lesser somewhere somehow. You know, but this is the Aaron L. Show. This is an update on Lil Durk murder for hire trial. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe or leave a comment, just like the channel. It helps me to get in the algorithm. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll be back at you with another one.